Today is the feast day of Our Lady of Guadalupe. And it's an interesting feast for me because I wasn't raised in Catholicism, so I wasn't raised with any kind of Marian devotion, and usually actually we're discouraged from that sort of thing because it didn't really make sense to us at the time. And I remember when I converted to Catholicism, one of my first intentional prayers that I said to Mary was after a Mass, and this was barely when I was trying to figure out what was going on during the Mass and what all the different images in the church meant. And as I was heading out of the church, there was a little shrine to Our Lady of Guadalupe. And I stopped in front of the shrine because this is an image that I had come across a lot growing up, but I didn't know what it meant. So the prayer that I addressed to her was, "I don't understand you, and I want you to help me understand." This reality of not knowing, I think, is present in various ways in today's feast, and especially now, and where we are at in the world, and especially with the virus, and with the fact that we won't be able to do what we might usually do today. And one of the things that might help us to understand this a little more is actually found in some of the most cryptic passages of today's readings. One of the options we're given for the first reading for Mass comes from the book of Revelations. And it's a very peculiar reading. It says, "A great sign appeared in the sky, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet." And it talks about this woman about to give birth, and it talks about the fact that there was a dragon waiting to devour her child the moment that she would give birth to it. It talks about the fact that the child was, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. Clearly it's talking about Christ. And Christ is swept up to heaven, is what the passage says. But the woman remains on earth. The woman actually continues to be pursued by the dragon. So in the midst of this passage, we have confusing and cryptic language that it may seem even contradictory, because we hear about this great triumphant hymn that says that the reign of God has come, the authority of his anointed one, but at the same time the woman is being pursued and she's suffering. And so we're asked to think of victory and triumph even in the midst of suffering and death. And that's something that is present even in our current situation. And we should note, however, that even though there are similarities between the woman in Revelations and Our Lady of Guadalupe, they are two distinct things. Our Lady of Guadalupe and her are both standing on the moon. They're both enclosed with sunlight, and these things are, similarities, but there are some differences. The woman in the book of Revelations gives birth, and in fact, in the moment that she appears, she's in labor pains. And Our Lady of Guadalupe is yet to give birth, so she's still pregnant, and she's more prayerful and reflective. And there are some other symbols that are present in the image of Our Lady of Guadalupe that aren't explicitly delineated in the woman in the book of Revelations. For example, we can note the dress she's wearing that has these floral patterns that are supposed to make us think of the earth. We can note the cloak that Our Lady of Guadalupe has, which is embroidered with these stars. And taking all of these things into one, we see an image which contains a lot of natural symbols. Jesus is present in the image, and he's not in any of the things I just talked about. He's not in the moon or the sun or the stars or the earth, but he's hidden amongst them. Because, as I already indicated, Our Lady of Guadalupe is pregnant. And so she comes bearing the word. But it's a hidden word. It's a word that is already and is yet to come, which is a theme that is very present in this season, and particularly now, with everything that we're going through. During this feast, a lot of us would have been participating in social events. We would have been participating in our parish fiestas. We would have been dancing with matachines. We would have had food. And we're not able to do a lot of those things anymore because of the pandemic. And so we're faced with this situation constantly, where we have to learn to see God's presence in a lot of absence and in a lot of emptiness. And these two images of Our Lady help us to understand that mystery. And it's a mystery that runs throughout all of the Christian life. The woman in the book of Revelations teaches us how to notice God's presence and the victory of justice over injustice, even amidst our suffering and even amidst our pain. Our Lady of Guadalupe teaches us how to be hopeful, how to be patient, and how to dwell within that hidden word and that hidden presence. She bears this hidden reality, and she bears it with a patience and a hope that we can see portrayed within her body language, the fact that she has a very prayerful disposition. We're called during this season to intensify our prayer lives. And actually, I would invite you to find an image in your house or wherever you might have it of Our Lady of Guadalupe, and to pray with the image, to sort of note these characteristics, and to think about the fact that you are also called to bear this hidden word. And it's a word that's accessible to you, even if you don't have an image of Our Lady of Guadalupe. You can go out in nature, you can participate in the reality of what the image is indicating, and the sun and the moon and the stars and the sky and the earth. And in all of these things, Christ is present. And it might be difficult to see that presence, but that's exactly how we know that that presence is there. He is there, hidden beneath these things.